Hi there, I'm Wazza and this is Bike File, the show that gives you the lowdown on all the best bikes on the market today. And in today's episode, it's the turn of the longest, lowest, meanest bikes around. Yes, it's cruiser time. So come with me as we take a trip to a land where performance takes a back seat and style is everything. No cruiser show would be complete without checking out a Harley Davidson, so I'll be testing the brand new V-Rod, and Louise will be riding something a little smaller in the shape of Suzuki's Intruder 400. In the meantime, Rod will be out on a Victory V92C, and at the end we'll wrap it all up with our top tips of what to look out for when buying a cruiser. So here we are, cruising in the local park. But don't worry, there's nothing untoward going on here. We are in fact just doing part one of our 3-part cruisers test with this, the Kawasaki Mean Streak. Now for years, Kawasaki have been very adept at making the most out of all the individual bikes in their lineup. And this one is no exception, because it is a breathed on and slightly tarted up VN 1500 underneath all this. Now the idea behind the Mean Streak is to get onto the bandwagon of performance cruising, as kicked well and truly back into life by Harley's V-Rod. But I've got to say, I'm not sure this bike's quite up to the task. One thing that has been slightly overlooked in the Mean Streak styling exercise, however, is the pillion seat. Look at it, there's absolutely nothing there, and I personally wouldn't want to sit on that for any more than about 2 minutes. But outright performance isn't everything, and the fact that the Mean Streak is actually basically a VN 1500 underneath all its dressy clothes is no bad thing, because the VN is a very capable motorcycle indeed. The gearbox is nice and light, so is the throttle. The brakes, which have actually been beefed up on this, now give you plenty of stopping power, actually a little too much for those forks on occasion, so you might want to be a bit gentle with them. The fuel injection is very gentle and smooth, and all in all, it's a relatively easy bike to potter about on. The only difference being that in its new Mean Streak guise, this VN-based machine does get a little heavy at low speed. So, wandering around in the car park or whatever, just make sure you keep your feet handy because you might need to dab them. Inside the motor, they have hotted things up ever so slightly to give us about an extra 7 horsepower, but this isn't exactly the largest increase ever seen in the world, and I wouldn't exactly term it performance. Overall, none of the upgrades, good though they may look, actually conceal the fact this is still just a rather sluggardly but large custom bike beneath all the baubles. Obviously, grinding away vast pieces of the side of your motorcycle is often an enjoyable experience, but it's a very, very costly way to get your kicks. So with the Mean Streak, leave the hard corner into a different bike, chill the pace out and enjoy the admiring glances as everyone looks at the vast, shiny size of your motorcycle. When it comes to faster corners, the Mean Streak can be piloted around with a fair degree of accuracy for the kind of bike it is, and also the ground clearance really isn't too bad. However, don't ever try and get energetic with it because you'll soon find the limits pretty quickly. After all, the Mean Streak is still packing 1500 cc's of motor down there. That is more than the average small family car, so why, oh why does it have to be so strangled in its power output? What I would love to see would be for someone to take one of these engines and really go to town on them. After all, it's so understressed in there. You could easily see another 30 odd horsepower out of that without damaging things too much, I would reckon. Now we'd be looking at about 100 horse, more like V-Rod performance, and something like that could be very interesting indeed. But what do I know? It's time for the scores now. Performance, 6 out of 10. There ain't really any performance here to speak of. What you get is a cruiser. Style, 7 out of 10. It's got plenty of low chrome cruiser presence to keep passers-by happy and staring at you. But it's got to lose a few points for those disgusting neon stickers on the tank. Comfort, 6 out of 10. Nice squashy seat, plenty of room for your legs, but you really are hung out to dry on those narrow bars, so if you want to get some speed in, it's going to hurt your shoulders. Reliability, 9 out of 10. That motor is so understressed, and its shaft drive, this bike will last forever. Whether that's a good thing or not depends on your point of view. Value for money, 8 out of 10. If you want a cruiser and you can't afford the big bucks for a Harley, then this is a lot of motorcycle for the money. Just don't expect any performance to go with it. Well, that's quite enough of the Mean Streak already, and shortly I will be trying out Harley's V-Rod in comparison. But before we do that, here's Louise with Suzuki's baby cruiser, the VL400 Intruder.
Thanks, Wazza. Now, we all know the king of custom bikes are Harley Davidson, including all the bike manufacturers out there who've watched the giant American corporation sell millions of hogs over the last 100 years. Now, many of them have tried to jump on the custom bike bandwagon, especially the Japanese guys. But the question is, have they succeeded to be the new kings of the road? The Suzuki VL 1500 Intruder is the daddy of Suzuki's custom bikes. Its younger brother, the 1400, isn't far behind. But this bike is the baby of the family. It's the VL 400 Intruder. It wasn't meant for UK shores, but somehow slipped through the net. This V-twin 400 looks like a monster of a bike, especially when you look down onto that wide, flat, teardrop-shaped tank. But gets her rolling and she feels surprisingly light. The suspension is soft and I couldn't feel any vibration through the seat and only a little bit through the handlebars. I wasn't particularly overexcited about the thought of riding this machine, but it was more fun than I expected. Its low centre of gravity makes the heavy bike easy enough to handle for a cruiser, and the low, squashy seat reminded me of my leather sofa in the lounge. Now, when you sit on the bike, your feet are very far forward and your body's in an overall reclining kind of position. Now, I noticed quite a foot stretch to the gear lever, and when I was knocking it into first, it was rather clunky, although the rest of the gears felt a little smoother. Now, overall, this is a lazy kind of machine, but it's laid back. That's what it's supposed to be like. But now it's time to move on to the bike file scores on the doors and see how the bike really measures up. As for performance, the bike earns itself 6 out of 10. It isn't really about performance. It's the leather jacket with the tassels. It's the feeling of being an easy rider. Now let's move on to comfort. This is where the bike really scores. The huge saddle is more than comfy and the low seat makes the bike rideable for almost any size and shape. But that position is pure cruiser, but it does earn itself 7 out of 10. And as for the build, well, it's average. It isn't built like a tank such as the Harley Davidsons. But there are some lovely touches like the tank-mounted clocks, the twin chrome exhaust and heated grips, which worked a treat in this cold weather. And for that, the bike earns itself 6 out of 10. Well, as for value for money, the bike scores 7. You're looking at around $3,700 for a 2-year-old model like this one, and it makes it slightly cheaper than its competitors, say Yamaha's Dragstar 650 and Kawasaki's VN800. They are the main rivals. In the street cred department, the bike scores 8, but only if it's cruising down the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, California. These bikes are too big for UK roads and should only really be ridden in the US of A. And that's all from me and the Intruder. It's now back to Wazza with another monster of a machine.
Thanks for that, Louise, and there you have it, the Suzuki Intruder 400, a bike that may have a fairly dodgy name, but is actually quite a sweet little performer. Now, earlier in the show, I was riding one of these, a Kawasaki Mean Streak, which, despite all its show, doesn't have quite so much go to back it up. So now let's check out Honda's VTX 1800 and see if that's got a little more bark to match its bite. Another take on the custom thing from the land of the rising sun, the VTX 1800 is the latest attempt by Honda to grab a slice of the over-the-top chrome and glitz pie from Harley. And on one level, it works very well indeed. There's the sheer enormous Gin Palace presence of the thing, and you have to admit it's got some mean cool going on under all that sleek black and chrome. Then there's the motor, which is also packing some good guts thanks to its 1795 cc's of V-twin oomph. But as with all cruisers, apart from the V-Rod and perhaps Honda's own S6C Valkyrie, it never quite delivers the poke that you feel that it could. But hey ho, that's cruisers for you. Best you slow back down and get back to enjoying your reflection in shop windows. But now it's time for the scores. Performance, 7 out of 10. All acceptable, but nothing amazing. Style, 8 out of 10. It's got the presence, it's got the looks, the only thing it hasn't got is a Harley badge. Comfort, 6 out of 10. From the waist down you're in luxury, and from the waist up it's going to get a bit uncomfortable as you hang on to those big bars in the breeze. Reliability, 9 out of 10. It's a Honda, it's hardly stressed at all, it's going to go on for a long time indeed. Value for money, 5 out of 10. For that cash, you could actually buy yourself a Harley, although it won't be quite as large. So what's it to be, size or the real McCoy? Well, that's the VTX 1800 for you, but I have to say, if it came to a choice between that and this, I would buy this one. Why? Because the Mean Streak is that much cheaper and the Honda's performance difference doesn't make it worth the extra money, in my opinion. Anyway, enough of part 1, but do join us again when we'll be back in part 2, where Louise will have all the buying information you need to buy a cruiser, and Rod will be checking out Victory's V92C. See you in a bit. Welcome back to part 2 of Bike File, where this week we are chrome on the range with the cruisers. Now shortly I'm going to be testing out Harley's V-Rod to go up against the VTX 1800 and Kawasaki Mean Streak from earlier, but in the meantime let's go over to Rod and see what he's got in store.
Oh, it's cold out here today, but I've got something that's really going to warm the cockles of your heart. We all know how obsessed the Americans are with mammoth cruisers with monster V-twin engines. But if you thought Harley-Davidson were the only manufacturer on that side of the pond, here's an alternative. This is the 1507cc Victory V92. An American muscle doesn't come any more impressive than this. In fact, any number of American companies have tried their hand at motorcycle manufacture, including famous names like Henderson, Indian and Ace, and my own personal favourite, the Flying Merkel. Almost all of these bikes have fallen by the wayside over the years, and it's taken till now for Victory Motorcycles of Minneapolis to emerge as serious rivals for the US performance crown. At a dry weight of 624 pounds, the Victory's never going to win in the lightweight stakes, but this heavyweight motorcycle is matched by heavyweight performance. It combines traditional American virtues with a certain exclusivity. And unlike a lot of Japanese customs, no one will ever accuse you of buying a Victory because you couldn't afford or otherwise cope with a Harley-Davidson. If you like Harleys, you'll certainly like this. For what you get with a Victory is simply more of everything that made Milwaukee famous. The V92 pumps out over 80 brake horsepower in standard trim, and Victory claimed 93 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200 RPM. Now that is stump-pulling stuff, whichever way you look at it. These bikes are hand-built in a world of mass production, and Victory have gone to great lengths to keep retail prices affordable. I'm very impressed by this bike, but I've always had a soft spot for big Yankee V-twins. If I can make any criticism at all, it's that the styling is just a little too chunky for my tastes, particularly the fuel tank. But hey, this is one bike that's not afraid to make a bold styling statement, and in a world of sanitised, mass-produced factory customs, the Victory is quite definitely the real thing. So how does it score? Well, performance-wise, you have to ride a Victory to really understand the meaning of torque. Dump the clutch too quickly and instead of a wheelie you'll get asphalt shredding wheel spin as the back tyre grapples with the planet to find grip. And when it does bite you better hold on tight as the monster V-twin tries to dislocate your arms from your shoulders as it pulls you off the line. You can keep your blades and jixers with their 3-figure speedo readings. This is real power. 9 out of 10 for performance. The V92 is a pretty comfortable bike too, not surprising considering its design brief. The pullback bars and footboards are great for the rider, but you'll need to add a sissy bar from the accessory catalogue if you want to keep your passenger on the pillion. In stock trim, 6 out of 10 for comfort. Spend some money on it though and the score could easily rise to 8. Quality wise these bikes are hand built and there are obvious signs of craftsmanship wherever you look. Paint finish is good and the powder coating on the frame looks like it will withstand life in the UK. Without the benefit of an extended road test, I'm going to stick my neck out and give it another 8 for reliability. And street cred. Feel the ground shake and building shudder as you rumble past. Tweak the throttle and hold on as the world surges backwards. Then park up somewhere and smile smugly through your mirror shades while people flock around and ask, "What the hell is that you're riding?" This, folks, is street cred. 10 out of 10. Right, I'm off to find some Arizona sunshine, so for now, it's back to Wazza.
Thanks for that, Rod. And if you're ready now to don your chaps, paint your nails and head into the cruising sunset, wait just a minute, because before you go and spend any money anywhere, here's Louise with all the buying information you're going to need.
The open road, clear blue skies and glistening chrome. We're definitely in cruiser territory. Sleek design, thumping engines and the ultimate imposability. These bikes are made for you to look cool. Looking good is one thing, mind. What about performance?
The performance of a cruiser really is not about top-end speed. It's more torque and power. essentially acceleration, designed really for straight roads, but you could have a fair bit of fun on a B road on one of those, I think.
Style and flair are these bikes' middle names. If you don't get the attention you deserve on a cruiser, then you're definitely doing something wrong. These bikes tend to be Harley lookalikes. People expect them to behave in a similar manner. In other words, useless brakes and handle like jelly. Not true. The Japanese manufacturers understand that we'd like to be able to stop and get through the bends with ease. So, most cruisers these days handle and perform surprisingly well.
The motorcycles are more easy to maintain than one might imagine. A little bit of tender loving care never goes amiss. A little wipe over every time it's been out will certainly keep the salt off. And if you're going to look after the thing, if you spent that much money in the first place, then that's part of the ownership experience. That's what it's all about. Enjoy it.
They really aren't the most practical bikes on the market. Too much chrome to keep clean in a country with terminal rain, well, it's going to be hard work. So on that front, they are a bit high maintenance. But on the other hand, some people do like giving their pride and joy a good once over on the drive on a Sunday morning. Personally, I'd rather stay in bed. Comfort isn't a strong point either. With a feet and arms riding position, it's a bit like being pegged out to dry in high winds. But I'm sure the sadomasochistics of this world would enjoy it. So, why would I buy one? I hear you cry.
It's that easy rider style. I think a lot of people want an escape from normal reality, and the cruiser gives them that, born to be wild, born to be free feeling.
Cruisers are popular again with a wide range of people. Women, funnily enough, mainly because of the low seat height. Older people that again have had the performance bikes and they've been down that road and they want something a little bit different. And a lot of people who've always wanted a Harley Davidson.
If you've always wanted a Harley but couldn't afford one, these cruisers are an alternative. You get a good handling, handsome looking machine and don't have to remortgage the house in the proceedings. They get admiring glances and make you feel a real special bunny. Ah.
A Harley Davidson is a rolling fashion statement. Now, whether you think they're for perfume ponces with more money than sense, or whether they rock your two-wheel world to the exclusion of everything else, one thing is for certain, you cannot ignore them. And boy, does Joe Public love their Harleys. Valentino Rossi could wheelie down your local high street, naked, facing backwards and singing the Italian national anthem. Chances are nobody would bat an eyelid. However, you turn up on a Harley, you've got their attention in seconds. And there is no Harley Davidson guaranteed to get more attention than this, the brand new V-Rod.
It's an image thing, it's a heritage thing, it's a rock and roll thing, but most of all, it's a cool thing. Just one look tells you this ain't no ordinary Harley. The styling's gone all swoopy, bendy liquid mercury on us. Hell, the thing almost looks futuristic for a change. And then there's the performance. No, really, there is. Okay, we'll never see a V-Rod in World Superbikes, and you're going to struggle if you want to do a track day on one, but this big beast fair old shifts when you put the hammer down. He'll even stop hard when asked and can get round corners with a degree of accuracy and amusement should you wish to get funky with it.
Hop aboard the V-Rod, and once you've got over the incredibly low seat height and the vast length of the thing, you're going to find yourself slipping into cruiser mode in no time at all. You know the deal, feet up in the breeze, 4,000 revs on the tacho and feeling like you're Peter Fonda out of Easy Rider. However, this is only half of the story with this Harley, because it revs to 10,000 RPM, very high for a cruiser. Pin that throttle, hang on, and I challenge you not to laugh, because this bike is indecently fast for something so fat. In fact, away from the traffic lights, it charges like a rampaging bull walrus on heat. This is a Harley that could actually land you in hot water with the law. Well, I never.
Twin discs and 4-pot calipers take care of braking duties at the front, while the forks actually seem to have a degree of control and damping about them, rather than the normal vague deadness we've come to expect from a Harley front end, so you can really use those anchors to their full effect. At the back you'll find plenty of power on the other end of that huge brake pedal too, so vast, howling, childish skids are very much on the menu should you fancy it. So it's got the looks, it's got the cred, and by jingo it's even got the performance to go with it. Could this be the perfect performance poser? Possibly, but it sure ain't perfect. First up, there's that price tag. 14 grand is a lot of money for a motorcycle, no matter how pretty it is. And talking of pretty, that's one thing your V-Rod won't be for long if you're lazy with the polishing rag, because this thing will rot like a supermarket trolley in the local canal if you don't look after it in our climate. Then there's the comfort, which is, to be honest, marginal for the rider at best, as you sit there like a spinnaker in the wind hanging off those bars. And as for pillions, forget it, unless they're small, female, and keen on doing their best baby lemur clinging to its mother's back impression every time they go out. Not only does that pillion seat slope backwards, but it is tiny to go with it.
And for a final kick in the pods, V-Rods have been notoriously difficult to get hold of until now, although Harley say they're bringing a lot more in this year, so maybe that problem's going to go away. But what the heck? The V-Rod is simply stunning to look at, and it is a technological marvel for Harley. Also, it performs in a way that bikes like this really shouldn't. So if you're after something a bit different, you've got loads of cash to splash and you want to turn heads, this could really be a smart place to go. However, just don't forget the polishing rags. There's a good chap. And now, it's time for the scores.
Performance, 8 out of 10. Absolutely stacks of it for a cruiser. Style, 10 out of 10. She's a beauty. Comfort, 6 out of 10. Bearable, but not beautiful. Reliability, 6 out of 10. You are going to have to look after this thing if it isn't going to rot before your eyes. Value for money, 10 out of 10 if you like the looks, 0 out of 10 if you don't. Whatever way you look at it, it is an expensive motorcycle.
Well, I'm afraid that's it for this week's show, but don't worry, because we're going to be back next week with some of the best sports bikes to come out of Japan. Everything from the dinky little grey import RVF 400 up to the brand new ZX6, so we'll see you then.